Israel was a very different country when I was born. Things were more naive almost, or innocent, I guess simple in those days, but it was very conservative. Well, I think that my American friends, or actually most Americans that have never been to Israel, have a very different view of the country. And most of the population actually would imagine Israel as being a very ancient place, very, maybe a desert or some old sites, and forget that there's also, very modern places in Israel. And I think a lot of people don't realize that.
ומהרגע הראשון היה לוחם, ולחם. טוב, אני מתחילה לבכות.
ההורים שלי הגיעו לישראל בעקבות עליית הנאצים. ראו שהולך להיות רע, פשוט חיפשו מקום מפלט, לברוח מהנאצים.
ההורים שלי הגיעו לישראל לחוד. אבא שלי היה ציוני ב-1936, וגם חנויות של מכולת ומאפייה. והיא לא רצתה לחזור, היה להם ילד אחד, שזה אחי, זיכרונו לברכה, ואז אבא החליט שאמא תעלה לארץ בכל מקרה. הם הגיעו לארץ, ואז באיזשהו שלב מסוים התחילה מלחמת העולם השנייה. כל המשפחה של אמא שלי וגם של אבא שלי לא נשארה בכלל שום זכר.
When I was born, and both my brothers, Yaron and Yaron, were both born in Israel, and my dad, who was a competitive sailor, who was actually on a sailing race. And he was racing the day that I was born, and both my older brother and my younger brother, and won all those 3 races. So at home we have those trophies with the date that we were born.
I think Israelis somehow, from the moment they're born, it's a negotiating thing. I mean, I think when he's in the womb, it's like, look, Mom, we can do this the easy way or the hard way kind of thing.
ואז אחרי כמה ימים הגענו הביתה, הייתה צריכה להיות הברית מילה, הגיע המועל. רוטרמן הסתכל עליו, לקח אותו, ניסה להעמיד אותו, והוא נעמד והלך כשהוא בין האצבעות של רוטרמן, ואמר, קדימה, אנחנו עושים לו את הברית בזמן. וזה מה שקרה. ומהרגע הראשון היה לוחם.
My dad was a very strict dad. He was the one that disciplined us. He was the one that separated my older brother Yaron and I when we fought, and my mom would try to get in the way and usually get hurt herself trying to separate us. I bonded with my dad over sailing. When I think about it, my love of sailing started as a way to connect with my father. He's the one that introduced me to sailing, and I developed a passion for it and found something that both my dad and I can talk about and have a relationship over.
Shalom, shalom, Yaroni.
All right. And we're
The noisemaker. We're in the water.
We can hear that.
Ocean in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ocean!
We're in the ocean now.
Bye-bye, Barney.
First time in the ocean. Hi, everybody.
probably the only memory I remember from the time I was about 11 years old was when my dad took me on a sailing trip in a very small boat.
בתקופה ההיא לקחתי איתי את ירון, שהיום אני לא יודע איך אמא הסכימה, להפלגה של שבוע ביותר לאור חופי הארץ בסירת סנייפ קטנה. הפלגנו, מדי יום היינו יורדים לחוף, עושים מדורה, ישנים, אוכלים וממשיכים למחרת. עד היום זוכרים את ירון בשדות ים, במקומות שהפלגנו והיינו, והיה מאוד נחמד, נעים ויפה.
I remember in the middle of the night, it was like a full moon, and we were hearing some waves crashing, which was kind of odd. And he woke me up and asked me, do you hear this? It's a big rock in the middle of the Mediterranean. It's called the Pigeon Rock. And we got pretty close to it, but we couldn't see it. So he heard the waves crashing on the rock, and immediately we had to turn to avoid it.
באותה הפלגה קרה לנו שנפרד הסקאלה של המצפן מהמצפן עצמו. זה דבר שאני לא מכיר שקרה למישהו מעולם. וירון החזיק הגה, ואני אומר, למה אתה לא שומר על הכיוון? אני כן שומר, לא שומר, עד שגילינו שהסקאלה של המצפן נפרדה מהמצפן, והמשכנו הלאה, כמובן, היינו לאורך החוף, לא הייתה שום בעיה, המצפן היה רק לעזר, קצת. וככה נהנינו, מאז אני חושב החיידק של הים נדבק לירון, החיידק גדל, והגיע לספידבוט, הגיע למפרשית, הגיע לאופנוע ים, ומאז ממשיך.
Amnon is telling a story and actually smiling with personality in New York.
Yeah. Oh, wow. We had so much fun on the way back.
I'm shocked.
Oh, nice. Remember last time when you...
Yeah, that's so my favorite memory, I guess, from that time with my dad.
Sail away, sail away. We will cross the mighty ocean in just a day. Sail away, sail away. We will cross the mighty ocean in the Charleston Bay.
So I think I knew that I was gay roughly around the age of 12 or so. Becoming a man and realizing that you're attracted to men. I knew it was different. When there was any reference to other gay people in the media, movies, whatever, I would watch other people's reaction to that. I knew that's not something that people at the time looked at in favor. That was a concern, and I kept it to myself. Knowing that I'm gay, but actually hiding it, you have to work on it. It's a project, and I think I approached it as a project. I had a girlfriend when I was in high school, and it was all basically a facade. I don't think I was devastated or, crying, oh my God, I'm gay and I have to hide it. But I looked at it as a project. I'm gay, I know it. I don't want other people to know. Especially when I joined the Army and I was working with Army Computer Academy and then the Minister of Defense and Intelligence, I basically would not have been able to do what I did in the Army if I was out. So I didn't think there was anything wrong with me being gay. There's something wrong with other people that they can't accept it, that makes me realize that I should hide it. In retrospect, choosing ice skating as a sport may not have been the best way to hide the fact that I was gay, nor wearing those shiny, sweatpants to school when I had every day.
She was a roller skate queen, he was a U.S. Marine, so far away from home.
במקומות ממוזגי אוויר בארץ נוטים להגזים במיזוג האוויר. כדאי לדעת שהטמפרטורה המומלצת היא 25 מעלות. הבדל של מעלה יכול לחסוך 5% בצריכת החשמל, וזה חשוב לכולנו.
When I was in high school, I started having vitiligo, having those white patches on my skin. And that, I think, frustrated me even more than being gay, just because it's visual. That's something people can see as opposed to being gay, and you can hide it much easier, I guess. After my older brother outed me to my parents, they took me to this psychologist or psychiatrist. He was the chief psychologist of the Israeli army at the time. The guy basically just had my parents step outside the room and chatted with me, asking me about my basic training, what I do in the army, my career, nothing to do with sexuality. And then he called my parents in, had them sit down and said, well, we have a problem. And I know things are pretty bad, but the good thing is that there's a treatment and there's a solution and we can actually fix things. So my parents are, getting excited, great, so how's it going to work? And he tells them it's basically 1 or 2 meetings per week. It's going to take 3 months. You'll see that things get better, improve. And probably in 6 months, things will be cured and fixed and back to normal. And my parents ask him, so when can he start seeing you? And he looks at him in straight face and says, there's nothing wrong with him. The problem is with you. And we left. So I remember my parents just giving him a check for 500 shekels. We're walking out, and that's the last time we saw the guy. Later on in life, by the way, I realized that they all knew. The senior management, my 2 mentors in life, Dave Errett, Pat Brazel. My project of hiding it wasn't that successful.
They're laughing at us. Hey. They laughed at Louis Armstrong when he said he was going to go to the moon. Now he's up there, laughing at them.
I already wanted to see the world. Growing up in Israel and watching movies and learning English from watching subtitles and no dubbing, so you get used to English and the accent.
I need to find someone who can translate into 7 different languages.
Well, I can do that.
And I remember even pretending to speak English, pretending to speak French, just to kind of get the accent. Like I do now with Spanish. Whenever we have friends over who speak Spanish, I always try to practice my fake Spanish with them, which kind of get Brandon a little bit upset that he thinks I'm making fun of Spanish, but it's not. I'm just practicing the accent. Conociéntase por favor, exargento de parero, de guacamole, sonero, de quesadilla, de presto, de bordeo. It kind of sounds like that.
Is the epitome of trial by fire. So it brings back a memory of being in Mexico. We had flown to Mexico to do a big important presentation in Mexico City. And the idea was that it was more of a sales presentation, so Yaron was going to take the lead. And so we walk in, we all sit around the table, and I guess it must have suddenly struck Yaron that I still speak Spanish. And so he said, everybody stood up, everyone said hello to each other, shook hands, we all sat down, and Yaron said, okay, now Matt's going to give you a presentation on the whole entire software in Spanish. Talk about deer in headlights.
So I remember the first time I traveled outside of Israel, and that was to France when I was in high school. I was like 17 years old and traveling outside of Israel for the first time. First getting into Paris and seeing this massive city of lights and the river, the boats in the middle of the city, the Eiffel Tower that you see on TV, and now I get to see it with my very own eyes. And meeting people. Us to the center of France area near Vichy and the Massif Central. We traveled really like the small villages. The culture seemed very different. Where in Israel, people are very direct and you know exactly what they mean when they speak to you. In France, it was a very different, very different culture. Extremely polite. I remember before even traveling to Europe, the high school arranged for inadequate classes where they taught us how to eat with, you know, which fork, which knife goes with which meal, not to speak with your mouth full, don't interrupt people when they speak. They actually had to train Israelis how to interact with, you know, Europeans or people outside of Israel, because Israel is just not aware of that. It's a whole different culture. That was interesting to see that there is life outside of Israel. The army in Israel teaches you a lot of things, but it teaches you first about yourself, you know, your limitations and also your abilities to do things that you couldn't imagine. In the middle of the night, they drop you off around 11 p.m. and then they pick you up in the morning. And you're supposed to memorize a map that you carry with you, but it's sealed. And if you open the map, you fail that training. In certain points, there are rocks with a number written on the rock. Figure out where you're going and memorize the terrain so you can match it with the map in your head. You look for a rock and there's a number, and then you remember the numbers. And in the morning, when you get debriefed, you basically give them a set of 7 numbers or so, and if you hit the numbers right, then and you get a perfect score for that nav training. One of the rocks happened to be inside a Bedouin camp, which is a tent. The Bedouins, a tribe that lives in the desert. Crazy, vicious dogs that were guarding the camp. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get the number? As I'm standing outside there trying to come up with a plan, the guys from inside the tent basically scream, Saba, Saba, you know, like 7 is the number, go, keep going. So they knew about the training and the numbers and what I was looking for. I remember the first time coming to New York, and that was after the army. I did a little backpack trip. I met with another friend, Tammy, from Israel, and she invited me to join her to the US. So that wasn't planned, it was a spontaneous decision. I basically jumped on a low-budget airline, paid $100 for the ticket, and ended up in New York. Her uncle owned the Edison Hotel and got me a room there. My entire budget for the entire trip was $700, and I remember waking up in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., going outside New York for the first time ever and looking at the high-rises, the lights, 42nd Street, Times Square. And I was really hungry, so I went to the little store at the hotel, and I didn't have any money, and all I could come up with were a few cents and less than $1, and I bought myself gum and some candy, and that was my dinner that day. Somewhere in a parallel universe, I'm still, you know, in Israel and probably an officer in the Israeli army still. I was here on vacation in New York and then got this phone call from this guy in Philadelphia who I didn't know and said, hey, come over for an interview.
We gave him his first real job at the startup company called Devon Systems in Philadelphia. We were recruiting people. We were a young company. We were growing, and we were looking for good people.
Dave called me after getting my name from a friend of a friend that knew that I did some programming in this mathematical computer language in the Israeli army. I said, no, I have to go to California because I had a ticket to go to Disneyland. Dave then said, well, if you come over to Philadelphia, we'll put you in a nice hotel, we'll take you to dinner, we'll show you around, you'll get to see the Rocky Steps, the Independence Hall. And Dave said that if I came to Philly for an interview, he'll change my flight and they'll put me in a first class seat. So to me, that was what changed my life, because I didn't have a lot of money, and I said, that's my opportunity to once in a lifetime fly in first class. And I figured I'll just go to Philly, and that's what happened.
And usually when you bring a candidate in, there's a certain procedure, there's an interview process. You ask some questions. How well do you know this? How well do you know APL? What's your experience and everything else? But with Yaron, it was very different.
Dave, at the time, was working on some problem, and he had me wait for the interview. So I looked over his shoulder, and I saw him working on a problem with a software that he was writing. And the exact same problem is something that I worked on about a month before. And after 20 minutes waiting, I said, Dave, hey, if you don't mind, I can help you with this, and we can move on with the interview and go to dinner. You promised to show me Philadelphia.
Pretty soon he came up with a solution, and we were talking about it. It was like we were already working together, And I said, when can you start? We just knew right away that this was a guy who would be a real value to our company.
And I called my mom and I said, I'm going to extend my vacation for a little bit. And that was it. I'm still on vacation.
פגשתי עם משפחה ירדנית, שהבן שלהם גם עבד בארצות הברית, והם הסבירו לי, בלי משפחה תומכת, העסק אבוד מראש. ואז אמא נסעה להיות עם ירון בתחילת תקופת ישיבתו באמריקה.
Chapter 1, phase 1 of my life ended, and a new chapter begins. And a new apartment, I'm living by myself in Philadelphia, meet new people, new friends. Most of my friends actually initially were people that I worked with at SunGuard. We used to have like a poker game, and every Friday you came to my house, and then I met some other new friends in Philly and felt more comfortable. I met Pat in a bar in Philly. We just started chatting. I probably made some stupid joke or a puzzle to him, hey, something, what's the square root of 7 or something like that. And we started chatting and connected.
I still remember the first thing that he said to me. We met at a bar in Philly, and we were just kind of standing next to each other. And we were young. This was 91, I think. And
like 18 then?
No, not that.
19?
20s. Mm-hmm. And he looked over and he goes, why are manhole covers round? You've heard this before.
No!
And I'm like, what? And
why are manhole covers round?
Because it's the only shape that won't fall into itself. I don't know.
That was a joke?
And I went home with him that night too.
Lucky.
That was right after I moved to Philadelphia, the same year, and probably, had like a one date with, one guy or 2 dates with somebody, and that was it. Then I met Pat, and we started dating right away after moving to Philly. When I joined management and became a vice president there, people were talking, dinners, making fun of some of the, gay people that they knew about in the office. So I decided I'm going to just keep it to myself. And it's tough actually having to keep a big secret of who you are and not being able to be yourself.
כשאני שמעתי שירון נוסע לארצות הברית, ישר הסתמרתי ואמרתי קדימה, אם הוא נוסע, אני נוסעת אחריו לעזור לו להשתקם שם. כעבור איזה 2-3 הוא היה בארצות הברית, או יותר אפילו, שהייתי שם כמעט חודש, פלוס אפילו. ראיתי שירון מוקף בחברים, כולם עזרו לו, כולם היו איתו. בנוסף לזה, אז הוא הכיר אחד בשם פטרו, שהוא היה חברו לחיים, שאני ממש הייתי שמחה לפגוש אותו ולדעת שהוא עומד ותומך בו. אחד תמך שם בשני, והיה כיף לראות את זה.
Hello everybody. Hello Ricky Barbecue. Hello. Agidi shalom.
Hello, bye-bye.
Yaron, making a snow angel. Why should I?
Even though I told him not to, but Yaron, are you gonna do it anyway?
Yes. Where do I do it?
Is Yaron crazy?
Yeah. Very crazy.
Look at all the snow. Look at that. Look at that. Transported from one country to another country, different language, different culture. But I remember in my dreams speaking in English for the first time. And to me, that sort of signifies, wow. Up until now, I dreamt, and if I remembered anything, I was speaking in Hebrew. Now it's English, so English is now my primary language.